Om Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanam Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 10 to 14.
Krodhaha Manmaya Mamupashritaha Bahavo Jnanatapasa Bhutamadbhavamagataha Ye yatha mam prapadyante Tam sathaiva bhajamyaham Mama vatmanuvartante Manushyaः partha sarvashah Kamshantah karmanam siddhim Yajanta iha devataha Kshipram himanushe loke Siddhir bhavati karmaja Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam Gunakarma vibhagashah Tasya kartaramapi mam Vridhya kartaramavyayam Namam karmani limpanti Name karma phale spruha Iti mam yobhijanati Karma bhirna sabadhyate.
Wherever in the Bhagavad Gita they talk about knowing the Atman or knowing Brahman, the way you've got to understand knowing is different from the way you know things in the world. All the knowledges in the world are objective knowledges. You perceive something, you see something, you hear something, you feel something, you think of something, is objective knowledges. Whereas the knowledge of the self, the knowledge of the Atman is subjective. In other words, the Atman is the subject within which is experiencing the world. So you see a sight. What makes you see? The subject within which is seeing is the self, is the Atman. So how can you know the Atman? Because the Atman is the one that knows everything. So you can't know the subject. The subject is that which knows everything else. Therefore, the only thing that you can do is you can become that subject. You become one with that subject. You merge with that subject. And that's what the scriptures are giving us, the path, the separation between you and that subject within is your vasanas, is the desires. You remove that desires, you remove the vasanas, you become one with that self, you become one with that subject within. So knowing God is becoming God. So God is not an object of perception, is not a theoretical analysis. So you can't understand God through theoretical analysis. Yes, we are also analyzing theoretically, but this theoretical analysis is so that you can remove the vasanas and get there. It's a means to an end. You can't know God through devotion. Devotion is again a means to an end. You can't know God through service. It's a means to an end. So knowing Atman is becoming Atman. The last verse, in the last class, we stopped at verse number 9. Let's see that verse. So, in that verse, it says, He who knows thus my divine birth and action in true light, one who knows the Atman. Divine birth means your Atman. One who knows the Atman in true light. So, what it means is becoming the Atman, become that unconditioned self. Having abandoned the body is not born again. See, this is a scriptural language. You understand? We are not studying a normal book. It's a scriptural book. So the language is a little different. It's poetic. Bhagavad Gita is poetry. So having abandoned the body, it doesn't mean you drop the body, you leave the body. It's not like that. Abandoning the body means abandoning the vasanas. The body is a medium to fulfill the vasanas. The body is a vehicle to fulfill the vasanas. Why are you born in the first place? You're born, you've acquired a particular type of body because you have that type of desire. Your desires change, your body changes. See, for example, a person could be obese or overweight. You understand? And one day he decides, listen, I've got enough is enough. I need to change. You see people transforming, dramatically they transform. The fellow becomes fit and slim because his mind changes. When the mind changes, the body changes. So when your vasanas change, your body changes. So body is just a vehicle to fulfill your vasanas. So when there is no vasanas, there is no necessity for the body. In that sense, he says, that state of perfection, that state of enlightenment, abandon the body. In that sense, not that he's going to leave the body. He doesn't need the body. He's transcended the body. See, experience to experience, you're going based on vasanas. Let's say a person develops vasana for going to Sydney. He said, listen, enough of life in London. Uh, I want the sun. I want the beach. So a fellow develops vasanas for Sydney. So what happens? He moves to Sydney. He relocates to Sydney from London. So you could say he is dead in London. He is born in Sydney. You understand? What is their birth and death? Because your vasanas have changed. You're no longer have vasanas for London. So you're dead in London. You're born in Sydney. So birth and death is because of the change of vasanas, which is happening in this lifetime itself. You're moving from experience to experience based on vasanas. The other day, somebody was saying that a person was very devoted to God and he used to go to the church regularly. And then he lost his grandson. Tragically, the grandson died in an accident. The fellow said, I'm not going to the church anymore. I don't believe in God. How could God do this to my grandson? You understand? So the moment his mind changed, he was dead in the church. He was born in the house. Understand? His experience changed. So birth and death is nothing but change of vasanas. So same thing happens when you're reborn. The only difference is you drop this body and pick up another body. That's the only difference. But the same change is happening in this life. Your childhood dies, your boyhood is born or girlhood is born. Then boyhood dies, you become a man, or you become a woman, a girl becomes a woman. And then the man dies, becomes an old person, an old man. So each stage in life, the earlier stage dies, you're born in the next stage, transforming throughout this life. So he who knows thus means what? He's realized the self. He's a self-realized person. He's not just somebody who's reading some books, but he's realized the self. Having abandoned the body, he's not born again. Because there's no vasanas, he doesn't need birth anymore. He comes to me, O Arjuna. So whenever they say me, Krishna says me or Christ says me, means the self within. So he comes to the self, becomes one with the self. So that's the solution. Solution is to gain the knowledge of the self. Once you gain the knowledge of the self, you become self-sufficient. You don't need desires. You need desires to the extent you're dependent upon the world. Okay? Is that clear? Any doubts? Let's move on to the next verse number 10.
वीतरागभयक्रोधाः मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः वीतरागभयक्रोधाः मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः.
Freed from desire, fear, and anger. See, this is the impediment. The last verse we studied, the impediment between you and God is the desires. So immediately he says, freed from desire, fear, and anger, absorbed in the self, taking refuge in the self, purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained my being. So he says it is possible. Just giving assurance that it is possible to realize the self. Don't think that it is reserved for a select few. There's no reservation. The state of self-realization is open to each and every one, provided you invest in this effort. So he's giving the formula for self-realization. So what is the formula for self-realization? Firstly, you remove the barrier of desire through karma yoga. See, 3 yogas. So through karma yoga, the barrier of desire is removed. When desire goes, fear and anger also go away, because fear and anger are modifications of the desire. You can't have fear without desire. You can't get angry without a desire. Give me any example, I'll prove it. You think this is how you should reflect. I'm telling you all this because after the class you need to go and reflect. Okay, this is an example of anger. What is a desire? This is an example of fear. What is a desire? You understand? You need to make that connection. There's a fear of losing when you are attached to something. You're scared. What if I lose it? What if I lose this person? What if I lose my job? What if I lose? You understand? There's a fear. Fear comes out of attachment. Similarly, anger is when the desire is obstructed. So the self is within each one, but it is covered by desire. So all that you're doing is you're removing the desire. You're not discovering the self. The self is already there. You're not bringing the self from outside. The self is within you. You just have to remove that covering, like you remove the oxide from a brass vessel. A brass vessel, you buy it from a shop, is nice and shiny, and you keep that vessel inside. You store it. After a while, it gets dark and tarnished because of the coating of oxide. So what do? Do you throw away that brass vessel and can buy another new one? After 2 years, throw it away, but you realize, listen, it's just the coating. You take a bit of brasso, put it on it, take a piece of cloth and rub it and rub it and rub it. What happens? The shine comes back. So the shine is inherent in the vessel. You're not bringing in shine. Shine is already there. What are you doing? You're just removing the oxide which is preventing you from seeing the shine. Similarly, you are not bringing the self within. The self is there. You're removing the coating of ignorance. So karma yoga helps to achieve that. Number two, bhakti yoga is indicated here as absorbed in the self. In fact, there is a sequence. You start with karma yoga and you move on to bhakti yoga, which is beautifully highlighted by Wordsworth in his poem The Daffodils. Huh? In The Daffodils, you go to Lake District, you see that, the area where he sat and wrote the poem. You can imagine how beautiful it would have been, when you go and see it. So that's how he starts off. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host, comma, of golden daffodils. Now, why I'm saying comma is you don't put a comma after host. It says a host of golden daffodils. It's like a bouquet of flowers. You don't say a bouquet, comma, of flowers. But there's a comma there. Purposely puts it. It's in the original text. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. So first two lines are talking about karma yoga. So wandering lonely as a cloud. Cloud indicates a spirit of service and sacrifice. A cloud gives water, and in that process, what happens to the cloud? Cloud itself disappears. So cloud signifies the highest form of giving. You give yourself away. That is karma yoga. If you do that karma yoga, you act in that spirit of karma yoga, immediately there is a feeling of ecstasy, a feeling of joy that comes from within. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host. See, the comma is there for the pause. There's a pause, a host of golden daffodils. So that pause is to experience that joy, to experience that ecstasy. So much of joy that fellow is feeling. That joy that you feel is bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is that love that gushes from within you. When does that love come? When you act in that spirit of service and sacrifice. Otherwise, you're so serious, so boring. Nobody wants to stay with you. Even you don't want to stay with yourself. You understand? So boring. So why boring? Because of self-centeredness, selfishness. You give. When you give, you smile, you make others smile. See, a postman comes, uh, put some money in an envelope and give it to him. They say for Christmas or Diwali, they say, here, I got a little something for you. You understand? Immediately there's a smile. Uh, So when you give a smile to others. You understand? Whatever you give, you're giving a smile to others. Makes you happy, makes others happy. So how do you spread the cheer, the spirit of giving? the spirit of sharing. So that is the second exercise. First exercise is karma yoga. Second exercise is bhakti yoga. Third exercise is jnana yoga, which is indicated here as taking refuge in the self. So first is free from desire, fear, anger. Second is absorbed in the self, taking refuge in the self. And the result of the three yogas is you become purified of your vasanas. Your vasanas disappear. See, this whole thing is depicted in the temple. The example of the temple explains this. So, in the temple, the priest takes a camphor and burns that camphor. What is the symbolism of the camphor? Camphor has a fragrance. Have you all seen a camphor? A white substance. You take a piece of camphor and you leave it in your room and you go out, come back after a few hours. What will you find? Camphor is missing. There's no camphor, but you get a smell all around the room. It's a beautiful fragrance you get. So what has happened? That solid camphor has become a fragrance. So camphor is indicated as vasanas. The word vasanas comes from the root vas, means smell, fragrance. So you have a fragrance about you, a good or a bad fragrance. It's a fragrance. So that is your vasanas. So the priest burns those vasanas. Priest represents the guru, the spiritual guide. He takes, see, what he does is there's a pilot light in the sanctum, where the idol is kept. There's a usually there's no lights where the idol is kept. It's dark, and even the idol is black in color. You don't see that idol. So what the priest does, only the priest is allowed to go inside. He goes inside and takes the fire from that pilot lamp. There's a pilot lamp burning inside. That represents your conscience. So your conscience is guiding you towards the self. So from that light of conscience, you burn your vasanas. The guru helps you in that process. Then in that light, you see the deity. You see the idol's face. Otherwise, till then, you don't see it. So that's what he means here. Purified by the fire of knowledge. Purified by the fire of knowledge. You burn your vasanas because of that knowledge. Many have attained my being. So you can also attain it. That's what he means. Many have attained it. You can also attain it. But are you ready to go through this process? See, how do you know that you are in the right direction as far as spiritual development is concerned? The indication for spiritual development is the increase of happiness. Your happiness increases more and more and more. You may or may not express it. You understand? But you have the joy within you. See, when you have it, others feel it. You understand? You don't have to express it. Others feel. See, for example, some of these comedians, and the comedian, some of them, they go on stage, they just stand there. Immediately people start laughing. The fellow's not even said anything. He's just standing and he's looking. People are laughing. You understand? So he's got that within. You understand? You feel it. You experience that. So when you have that within you, others feel it. So you spread that happiness, you spread the joy. So this happiness gradually increases. In fact, in the scriptures, they give 4 stages of happiness. How this happiness increases more and more. So the first stage of happiness, they call it as salokyam. See what they, I'll explain what it means and then you will understand it. Then we'll show it on the screen. So first is salokyam, the first stage of happiness. Salokyam literally means occupying the same world, occupying the same location. Now, what that means is, you may wonder, what does it mean? See, you are attached to the world, you're running towards the world, you're moving away from the self. The self is the other direction. You're going towards the world. So the moment you become introverted and turn towards the self, it is salokyam. You're occupying the same location. You're going within. So the first stage of happiness, the first experience of happiness is when you turn introverted. You feel a sense of joy. You feel a sense of relief because you're not tormented by the world anymore. And then you become more and more introverted. You keep gaining the knowledge of the self. You become more and more introverted. The second stage of happiness is samipyam. Samipyam means you're going closer to that object, which is the self. You're going closer to the self. So first is you're occupying the same location. Second is you're going closer to the self. Third is you see the self, which is sarupyam. Rupa means the form. You see the form. And finally, you become one with the self. You merge with the self. Sayujyam. You shoot a bullet into a banana tree, a branch of a banana tree. What happens? The bullet goes into that banana tree because it's soft. It goes in. It's like that. You merge into the self. You become one with it. The first is salokyam, samipyam, sarupyam, and sayujyam. 4 stages. See that. First is inhabiting same location as the object of pursuit. You're pursuing the self. You turn introverted, you are in the same location. Then you become more and more introverted, you're getting nearer, you're approaching the object, you're approaching the self. So first is salokyam. Loka means world or location. Samipyam, you're getting closer. Then you see the form of the self, sarupyam. Finally, you merge, sayujyam. So it's like uh, parents, they are taking the child to Disneyland and they tell the child, hey, I'm taking you to Disneyland. Oh, so exciting, so exciting. The child is excited just with the news that they're going to Disneyland. Okay, they board the flight and then they're going nearer and nearer to Disneyland. Then the child actually sees the Disneyland from the distance. That is Sarupyam. And then it goes inside, hugs Mickey Mouse, merges, huh? Becomes one with Mickey Mouse, merges with it. So it's like that. So Salokyam, the general location, then you're getting closer and closer, then you see it, you merge with it. So different stages of happiness depending upon how introverted you are. The more and more introverted you become, see, introverted does not mean you shun away from the world. That's not what introversion means. Introversion simply means that you are questioning everything, you're examining everything. That's all introversion means. You don't take things for granted. You question, you examine. The more and more you do that, The more detached you become, the more happier you become. Okay? Let's move on to the next verse.
ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तां तथैव भजाम्यहम् मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः ये यथा मां प्रपद्यन्ते तां तथैव भजाम्यहम् मम वर्त्मानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्याः पार्थ सर्वशः.
Howsoever men approach me, even so do I satisfy them. Men tread my path in all ways, O Partha. See, this verse onwards, 11th verse onwards, the second topic of this chapter starts. So verses 11 to 18 is the second topic of this chapter. And the second topic of this chapter is titled How Self Relates to Action. So we covered the first topic, which is Self is Eternal Teacher, which is what we finished in the last verse. Now we are going to study how the self relates to action. What is the role of Atman in you? How does Atman operate in a human being? So you see the topic division. So chapter 4 has got 42 verses and is divided into 6 topics. We've covered the first topic. The second one we're just starting. And then the third topic, actions of enlightened, not binding. The fourth topic is almost the essence of this whole chapter, which is the 12 yajnas, the 12 types of sacrifices, verses 25 to 30. And then all yajnas culminate in wisdom. Finally, Krishna's advice to gain wisdom. So, what is the role of the self? Is what he's highlighting in this verse. He says, people perform different types of actions. I permit all those actions. So, whatever you want to do, the self permits it. So, the role of the self, as far as your action is concerned, is the self supports every action. Any action you want to do, you do it only because of the self. The self is the enlivening principle. Without the self, you can't do anything. But the self is not responsible for that action. It does not initiate an action. It does not prompt an action. It does not control the action. It just gives you the power to perform the action. In that sense, he says, I satisfy all your desires. Whatever you want to pursue, you pursue it. I'm with you. The self does not judge your actions. That's what is given in the Bible. Judge not, that you be not judged. Judge not. You understand? So don't judge. The self, because that's what the self does. Self doesn't judge. So what is see, if you want to practice spirituality at a very basic level, what you should do is don't judge anybody. So each one does whatever they're doing based on their vasanas. Similarly, you are doing whatever you're doing based on your vasanas. Who am I to judge? So you don't place yourself in a higher position to judge others. They are doing whatever they're doing. So if you don't judge, there's no criticism. The sign of spiritual development is lack of criticism. So, howsoever men approach me, even so do I satisfy them. So, Atman is impartial, is neutral. God does not favor anyone, God does not punish anyone. You understand? You can do anything, God does not praise you. If you do anything wrong, God does not punish you. So, whatever you want to do, God is saying, I'm with you. A scientist wants to find a cure for cancer, is working morning, noon, and night to find a cure for cancer. What is supporting, what is enabling that person to do it is a self. A terrorist in a remote corner of the world is planning to spread a virus and destroy the whole world. What is enabling him to operate? The same self. The same self is helping the scientist, same self is helping the terrorist. Self is impartial, is neutral. An athlete is training hard for Olympics. Another person is lazy, lethargic, sleeping the whole day. Both are doing what they're doing because of the self. So self doesn't say, hey, you lazy fellow, get up, man. Self doesn't say that. Sometimes you wish self says it. It doesn't say it. You want to be lazy is your choice. You want to be wicked is your choice. You want to do good is your choice. So total neutrality, total impartiality. Howsoever men approach me means by through various actions, you're doing whatever you're doing, even so do I satisfy them. Men tread my path in all ways, O Partha. Partha is another name for Arjuna. Men tread my path in all ways. So all paths in the world are paths of the self. Whatever you do, good, bad, indifferent, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, material, spiritual, anything that you do is all parts of the self. You may wonder how is it possible? Is because whatever you're doing it for what? To seek happiness, to gain happiness. And what is the self? The self is the abode of ultimate happiness, infinite happiness. Therefore, since you're pursuing happiness through your actions, through your goals, you're pursuing the self unconsciously. Everybody is pursuing the self, but they're pursuing it unconsciously. They don't know that they're pursuing the self. So that's what he says. All paths are parts of the self because everyone is seeking the same happiness. So, what is the difference between a saint and a sinner? The same self is in the saint, the same self is in the sinner. The difference between both of them is not the self, is the mind and intellect. So a saintly person is one who has pure emotions, who has positive thoughts. He's got thoughts of service and sacrifice. He's reduced his sensual thoughts. He's reduced his material thoughts. So the saintly person is a saintly person because of the quality of the mind and intellect. A sinner is got a gross emotions. So the quality of the mind and intellect is what determines the different type of people. The Atman, the self, is the same in everyone. The men tread my path in all ways. People approach me in different, but they don't know that they are approaching. Be honest, they are unconsciously pursuing it. They don't know they're pursuing the self. As long as you're pursuing happiness, means you are pursuing the self. That's why Ramatita says, someday you'll have to turn to the self. Because you've tried all of the methods, it won't work. You will be disappointed because you won't get the happiness lies in only one place. So you can keep trying, trying, trying. Ultimately, you'll get fatigued and you'll say, okay, now I'll pursue the self. You understand? Out of fatigue, you'll pursue it. So you have no choice but to ultimately turn towards it. So this is something you can practice in your own way. How to be as neutral as possible. How not to get involved. Otherwise, slightest things you get involved. You take sides. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like the look of this person. Okay? You don't even know who that person is. Straight away, you have an opinion. The tendency of the mind is to get involved in anything. So to take a step back and just wait and watch. Just wait and watch. That's how you start practicing objectivity. Just wait, just watch. Before the fellow has finished the question, you've got an answer. You've not even heard the question fully. Just wait, just pause. That pause will help you a lot. Just a few seconds. Pause. I remember while somebody was asking, oh my God, this thing happens. I always lose my cool. I don't know what to do. I said, listen, you buy yourself some time. Somebody asks you. I said, how do I buy time? I said, just say I have to go to the toilet. Just excuse yourself, say I have to go to the loo and go and sit down there and few seconds think about it. So whichever way it's possible, just give yourself that pause to think. So wait and watch. That'll help to kick in that objectivity. Next verse.
काङ्क्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा काङ्क्षन्तः कर्मणां सिद्धिं यजन्त इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हि मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा.
They who long for success and action here sacrifice to the gods. For quickly indeed, success is born of action in the human world. So Vedanta or the Bhagavad Gita is not against material prosperity, is not against success in the world. In fact, it teaches you how to get success. So in this verse, he says, how does Atman support your material pursuits? You want to become successful in whatever you're doing. And the same verse is ingeniously giving us the key to success as well. So what is the key to success? Sacrifice. Yajante devata. So sacrifice to devata. Devata is gods. It's translated as gods. And what is meant by gods here? So sacrificing to the gods means you are pursuing limited goals in the world, limited ideals in the world. See, there is one absolute ideal, which is the ideal for self-realization. That's absolute goal, absolute ideal for self-realization. Hardly anybody is interested, forget about even pursuing that. So the entire world follows relative ideals. Relative ideals means ideals in the world, limited ideals in the world. For example, you want a better job, you want to raise a family, or a person is running a country. All these are goals within the world. These are limited ideals. So these limited ideals have been depicted as various gods and goddesses. So sacrifice to the gods means, what is it you got to sacrifice? You're sacrificing your likes and dislikes. You're sacrificing your likes and dislikes to the accomplishment of the goal that you fixed. Say a player wants to win the Wimbledon, another 2 months' time, you'll have that. So a player wants to win the Wimbledon. What does the person needs to do? He says he has to sacrifice his likes and dislikes to achieve that. Control your likes and dislikes. You need to sacrifice your comforts. You need to sacrifice your enjoyments in order to achieve that. See, even for the sake of career, you see many people, they postpone their marriage, they postpone having children. Huh? See, athletes, when they do the training, the Olympic athletes, they do training early morning. High altitude training is done during early hours of the morning. So they have to change their whole routine. They got to go bed too early. They got to wake up early and train. Not 1 day, 2 days, years they got to do that. Therefore, they are successful because they have sacrificed. See, even actors, you may be a big actor, but ultimately you got to be professional. You got to listen to whatever the director says. You got to be there on time. Otherwise, they won't pick you for the next film. So you sacrifice all that. What they call as hard graft. Hard graft. So the harder the graft, the more successful you'll be. Even some of the players, when they go away for matches, sometimes they don't allow them to take their wife and children with them. They can't take their partners, they can't take the children with them. So there's a sacrifice, element of sacrifice involved. Some people may want to stay away, that's different. But I'm saying generally, so that sacrifice is necessary to accomplish anything. So in other words, you don't want to give up anything. You want all your comforts. You want all your enjoyments. What will you achieve? Nothing you'll achieve. So that ability to take that plunge. Lionel Messi was asked in an interview, and he said, he's giving his schedule. He's saying, I start early, I stay late, day after day, year after year. And then it took me 17 years and 114 days to become an overnight sensation. They said, oh gosh, oh, it was an overnight sensation. Then what's the overnight? I've been working my whole life to become an overnight sensation. Say suddenly a person gets an Oscar. Oh, he's got an Oscar award. He's not an overnight sensation. He's been working on it for years and years and years. See that quotation by Lionel Messi. I start early and I stay late, day after day, year after year. It took me 17 years and 114 days to be an overnight success. So he is where he is because of his sacrifice. As far as spiritual development is concerned, the sacrifice is much more. So as any achievement in the world is limited sacrifice. See, a person who's winning the Wimbledon, he's not sacrificing everything. He's sacrificing whatever is necessary to win the championship. That's all. Whereas for spiritual development, you have to sacrifice your ego and egocentric desires and mass. The entire thing you've got to drop. So same sacrifice is necessary in the material world, same sacrifice is necessary in the spiritual world. But obviously, you've got to sacrifice much more for spiritual success. See, interestingly, you may wonder, oh my God, I have to sacrifice, I've got to sacrifice. When you understand the importance of the goal, you don't see it as sacrifice. You don't feel I'm sacrificing so much. The moment you understand the importance, it's like parents having a child. They willingly take care of the child. They spend sleepless nights looking after the child with joy. You understand? Because you understand the importance of it, to looking after the child. A freedom fighter readily sacrifices himself for the sake of the nation, happily sacrifices. So you don't feel it as a sacrifice. See, whenever I give the public lectures, they introduce me, on stage. So they introduce and say, Bhaskarji sacrificed his merchant navy career and he took up to Vedanta full time and all that. I'm listening all that, I'm just behind. And then when they say, okay, we welcome Bhaskarji, I walk in. And as I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, I don't feel that I've sacrificed. You understand? So everybody says, oh, you sacrificed the thing. I don't feel I've sacrificed. So when you understand the importance of what you want to achieve, what you've given up is nothing. It's nothing because the goal that you're pursuing is much greater, much higher than that. So those who long for success and action here sacrifice to the gods. So you've got to practice that and then you will achieve success. Then the second line he says, for quickly indeed, success is born of action in the human world. The word he uses is shipram. Shipram means quickly, easily. What does it mean easily? Success in the world. All of you are struggling, struggling, struggling. I wish I can get more success. I can get more success. Coolly saying, very easy to get success. They almost feel like strangling him. What do you mean easily, man? I'm struggling my whole life. And you're saying it's easy. So see that word, Shipram. Shipram means quickly, easily. It's not difficult. So when he's saying it's not difficult, it's easy, he's comparing it to spiritual success. So with reference to spiritual success, that is much more difficult. Compared to that, this is easier. You understand? So that's what he means. So what he's trying to say is, okay, even if you achieve success in the world, there's still a long way to go. That's not the ultimate. You become the richest man in the world. You're on the Forbes list, Sunday Times rich list, number one. What does it mean? Does it mean you're a self-realized person? You achieve, fulfill everything? Nothing. Internally, you feel as empty as anybody else in the world. Interestingly, there's another list published by Sunday Times. In fact, the same publication, they have another category called giving list. You understand? The Sunday Times rich list, people who earn money. Those who have given money for charities, they have a separate category, which doesn't match this. You understand? So richest person is not the biggest giver. It's a different list. It's fascinating to look at that. So just because you're on this list or that list, does it mean you've fulfilled? You're happiest person in the world? No way. Uh, some of them, I know them. They're nowhere near happy. So it's just an illusion. The worldly success is just an illusion. So if you want the spiritual success, you want the real self within, the sacrifice required is greater. Those who long for success and action is sacrifice to the gods. For quickly indeed success is born of action in the human world. One more verse.
चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टम् गुणकर्मविभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि माम् विद्यकर्तारमव्ययम् चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टम् गुणकर्मविभागशः तस्य कर्तारमपि माम् विद्यकर्तारमव्ययम्
Chaturvarnyam, which means the fourfold caste system. So this fourfold caste system was created by me according to the differentiation of guna. Guna means quality. So differentiation of guna and action. Though I am its author, know me to be the non-doer and immutable. See, many people are surprised because they don't understand that the entire caste system actually originated from the Bhagavad Gita. The source of the caste system is actually the Bhagavad Gita. And that caste system has created so much of havoc in India. So much of problems it has created, is still creating. So many divisions, so many conflicts is because of the caste system. So sometimes people ask, then why are we studying this? Why are we learning it if it has caused so much of problems? See, the problem is not with the principle of the caste system, it is the implementation of the principle. When you study the principle, which is what I will explain, probably next class I will explain that. What is the whole principle of that fourfold caste system? It's such a beautiful principle, but they messed it up when they tried to implement it. So, but it's a beautiful thought behind it. So that fourfold caste system was created according to the differentiation of the gunas. Gunas are sattva, rajas, tamas, the three qualities. Though I am its author, know me to be the non-doer and immutable. I have nothing to do with it. Self is speaking, Atman is speaking, and says, I have nothing to do with it. So there's a system that is operating. I don't get involved in that. See, he maintains that neutrality all the way through. It doesn't deviate from that neutrality. In fact, this caste system is explained in the full scope of this caste system is explained in the 18th chapter. The last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the entire caste system they explain, giving qualities of all the people in the caste system. But here, next week, I'll explain to you briefly what is the significance and what does each of them mean. I'll explain. Okay, so let's stop here for today.